Welcome back to SPN Energy Network's Powering Conversation. This week we are super excited to welcome Scotland internationalist Christine Belisle. Welcome, Christine.
Thank you.
Also more commonly known as CB to us. How are you?
So good. Yeah.
Good. Well,
to be here.
It was great to have you. So today we're going to just kind of chat through your life in terms of sport, athlete, work, everything that comes in between. So let's go to the start. And I know you had a slightly maybe non-traditional introduction to sport and rugby. You've had some kind of random sports in there. So, and for those that don't know, Christine grew up in Canada. You may be able to tell from the accent. So tell us a little bit around kind of your upbringing with sport and what sports you first got into.
Yeah, so growing up, I was super shy, which I think like if all of you know me now, it's crazy because I'm probably one of the most annoying people ever. But growing up, I just like, the thought of joining a team sport gave me the most anxiety. Like it was crazy. So I actually grew up figure skating. So I was an individual figure skater. And then I did eventually branch out to synchronized skating. So then there was more of a team aspect. But once I got into high school, so I was like 14, in the first year, all of my friends started to play rugby because that's when we get into high school, we can play every sport, which is super lucky. But I was still just nervous about it. I think, because I'm a really competitive person, but I think I just did. I know, hard. But I guess I probably just didn't want to not be good at something. Like now looking back, obviously at the time you don't know like what's holding you back, but all of my friends did it. They were all having the best time. And then the following year they were going to go on tour to Ireland. So that's probably the main reason why I joined. Like all my friends having a good time, also a trip to Ireland for like 10 days because we were going to play over there.
Yeah.
So I eventually started playing my following year. And I always tell the story because I think it's so funny, but one of the moms that knows me from when I was like an infant and I did figure skating with and all that, she watched my first game because her daughter was playing as well. And she was like, oh, like Christine, it's so nice that you've found a sport that like suits you. Thank you. Because I'm not really the most graceful person. So yeah, I think as soon as I started, it was like rugby and I got on like a house on fire because I'm a bit of a bull in a china shop is what my dad likes to say. Like I just
the best of us are.
Honestly, yeah. Like so that's when I started playing. And I played for my club and I just kind of like almost found more confidence in the sport. Like and I don't know, like rugby communities are like no other communities. Like you become a family and you get to know everybody, you know. So I did just kind of find a different comfort in that.
Yeah.
And it suited me better because it was just more to who I am. So
how did you come to, first of all, be in Scotland, I guess? How did you end up being here? And then how did you get back into playing rugby again?
So I originally moved here. I had come here for a wedding. And then I just fell in love with Glasgow. Like I don't know what it is. I always felt like itchy feet. So I've always wanted to travel, move around. But when I got here, I was like, oh my gosh, like this is the place. Like I love it here. And every time I tell people that, they're like, why would you say that? Like, why would you move from Canada to Glasgow? I'm like, no, it has its charm. Like, and so once I went back to Canada, I worked for a bit, saved up, but I actually have an Irish passport. So it meant that coming back over here, I could travel more and work without restriction. Because that was the biggest thing. Like, I wanted Glasgow to be like my home and my hub, but being able to travel around Europe at such a like less expense. Because I mean, traveling from Canada to Europe is not cheap. However, taking a Ryanair flight, ideal, right? So that was sort of the, I say ideal lightly, but that was sort of like the plan. And then because when I had moved back over, like I wasn't really going to play rugby. Like it wasn't with the intent of playing sport, but I had worked in restaurants. I had done all of these different things. And I was like, I really need to expand my horizons. Like my community is my friend that I moved with and the 10 people that I work in a pub with, not super healthy, you know, like you're not doing a lot of exercise. You're not meeting people who are actually like you. The only thing you have in common is like serving people and drinking beers, and that's not really the ideal place for me. So then I actually was like, you know what, I'll just see where there's a club nearby, because then at least I'll meet new friends. Because like being an adult and making new friends in a new place is hard. So I ended up like, I live south side, so I ended up just Googling rugby clubs near me, and obviously the only ones really in Glasgow are Cartha and Hills. So I ended up at Cartha because I could walk to the club, and I'm so happy that I did, because it's the better club. Don't tell Hills I said that. All the Hills girls that play for Scotland are gonna be so rattled, but Cartha till I die. So yeah, no, it's so good. Like it provided me a new environment, a new community, and they have been so good. Like the women's team, the men's team, the whole club are just like, it's cool to feel that family here that I felt when I was growing up as well. You know, they just like back you with everything you do. So
that's super cool.
So good. Yeah.
Okay, so we're back playing rugby now. So how then did you become involved with the Scotland women's team?
So I had been playing with Cartha for a year, and one of my coaches was like, we should see like if you could qualify to play, like, because we didn't know what the chat was in terms of living here, like what the qualification was. So Thomas Davidson actually was the one that ended up putting my name forward to Shade, because he was the coach at the time, being like, look, I know this girl who plays for Cartha. She's a really good athlete. Like, I think that you should look at her. And so he actually ended up, because the season hadn't started yet, there was nothing really going on. I don't know, it was like summertime. So I ended up actually going along to a 7s session, which was challenging, because that was, I mean, going from like club rugby to going to like Scotland women's 7s fitness was a wake-up call. However, I just was trying to survive. I didn't need to thrive. I just needed to survive that. And it was good. I mean, like Scott Forrest was there. He put in a good word for me for Shade. So, I mean, I owe a lot of like that to those people who saw something in me and kept trying, you know, like bringing me into these opportunities, because it got to that point where like now I know that if I work really, really hard, I can prove that I deserve to be there. And that's really what I was going with, was like, I knew that I didn't maybe have the skill level yet or whatever, but I was willing to work my butt off to get to a place. And so, yeah, I think that like those coaches, hopefully that's what they saw and not me like peer pressuring them. No, but yeah, so that's here cool. We are. Yeah.
Good. Okay, and then your first cap was like a pretty spectacular way to get your first cap. We were obviously on our first ever tour to the Southern Hemisphere in South Africa. So tell us a little bit around that experience from your point of view.
So honestly, I feel like I blacked that out. I was so nervous, dude. Like being selected to even go was wild, right? Because I just felt like I was brand new in that situation and in the setup. And I, again, like was working really hard, but it's hard. It's tricky because like, you don't want to assume that you're going to make it. Like I was brand new. I didn't want to assume I was going to make it, but I also didn't want to not give myself credit that I could deserve to be there. You know, it's like that hard place. So when I was selected, I like lost my mind. I was like, this is crazy. Like hard work does actually pay off. Like, oh my God. I just remember the first match, because that was the first one that I had, sitting on the bench watching, and my heart, I honestly wish that I was wearing a heart rate monitor just sitting watching, because the thought of like, now we're in the second half, I'm like, I might be going on, I might not be, but I need to be prepared either way.
Yeah.
So sitting and watching, and like, as the clock is ticking down, I'm like, okay, I might get 5 minutes, I might get 2 minutes, I might get no minutes, but like I was so nervous that when I finally went on, like I hardly even remember it. It was incredible. I feel like super, super lucky to have had that opportunity. Yeah. And I think even just like being on that tour allowed me to like mesh more with the squad as well. Like I think for the whole squad, that was so big to spend so much time together, and it was such a huge accomplishment like for us all, but being able to like actually be a part of that was big for me, because it allowed me to kind of like settle into the squad. And I feel like when I get more comfortable in those situations, I perform better because I don't get so like stressed. you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I think like that tour for all of us, like even us that have been in the squad for a couple of years and stuff, like was massive in terms of us moving forward as a team. Like it, like you say, like it was the most concentrated time we had together, but like it was not just about the on the pitch stuff. So I think as like new person coming in as their first cap, like such a good way to like integrate into the team, and you definitely did that pretty quickly. So I guess like on that, and you can talk about Glasgow in this. What do you love about like the Scotland women's environment, and kind of what's almost like what makes us high performance, I guess? What do you like about it?
Well, I guess, yeah, I mean, obviously when we are training in our own areas, like
Where
the
do you train
Glasgow,
again?
I train in Glasgow. My crew, you know, shout out to my Glasgows. They're going to love this. Shout out to Tyrone, dad. But yeah, all of us, we just work hard, you know, like we do set the standard. And it's just so cool to see, like, because you always want to push yourself, but like even on the morning, because we train in the morning. So sometimes when you show up and like someone's maybe like not had the best sleep or is a little bit like grumpy, it's so quickly changed because everybody's bringing the vibe. So like over the last year, obviously it's not been ideal because we've been so restricted with what we can do, and the amount of games that we've not played, but we've gone through huge like strength blocks in the gym, and like to be able to see those numbers get so big and like the hype is so real. So I think it's just like the environment that we're in. Obviously all of us, we're here because we work really, really hard and we want to always be our best. But I think the best thing about it is even on the days that maybe you don't feel like you're showing up for yourself, everybody else around you is there to lift you up, which is cool,
100%.
you know? And it's, again, like, it's that rugby community thing. Like everybody is there to back you, but it's just a different like level. Yeah. So good.
Good. And then in terms of like working hard, obviously you have gone through a little bit of a transition period recently from being a kind of second row, back row type player to playing as prop. So talk us through a little bit of how that's been for you, other than painful.
Other than the fact that my neck no longer turns to the right. I mean, it has been a journey. Like when I originally started rugby, I actually played 12. So to give you a reference point from where we were to where we are. But yeah, I think it was funny because earlier, like, I don't even know, maybe when I first got in the setup, so like last year or however long ago that was, because COVID makes everything feel so long, Tyrone and I actually had like a conversation. It was not even real. He was like, oh, imagine if you were front row. And I was like, oh, that would be cool. Like I would try anything. Like I just want to play, you know what I mean? He was like, yeah. And that was it. Like there was no stock in that conversation. It was literally just, we were talking about, I was getting really good deadlift numbers. Like how cool would that be? And then like fast forward a year where I was approached like, hey, CB, what are your thoughts on actually moving to front row? And I was like, so this is a real conversation now. Like, and I was like, yeah, I mean, I'm absolutely willing to try. Like because at the end of the day, I just want to play. Yeah. And so I am willing to work to see how it goes. And that's what I said. I was like, it might not work. Like, but if I don't try, we don't know. And I think that it kind of comes back to like when I was younger and didn't put the work in for that provincial trial. I always think that that's what settles in my mind. Like if I don't take that opportunity, we'll never know. Yeah. And I mean, it's been paying off. Like it's very difficult. It's so different from anything I've ever tried before because you see it happen as like a back row, second row, like when scrums go down or when you're training, you're like, oh my God, I don't get why they can't just hold it up. And now being in a front row, like if I hear any of that, I'm going to turn around and we're going to have words, you know what I mean? Like it is so hard because there's just so many things going on. But yeah, no, I'm genuinely enjoying it. It's just a different, like, definitely.
The last thing I wanted to touch on was obviously we've talked a lot about rugby, but you also work as a PT outside of your rugby. So tell us a little bit around your business. And I guess it's kind of ethos, I guess. It's got quite a cool, what's the word to it? Kind of motto around it, I guess.
So I'm a coach. I obviously right now we do only like online stuff. But my business is Strong Friends Club. And for me, I mean, what I focus on with all my clients is putting strength above all else, because I think that in the cyberspace world, when people want to change or transform, or it's like so weight loss focused, fat loss focused, but not about like, look at all of these things that you are gaining. I wanted to create a space that was like greater than the aesthetic, because again, like that, I was just so tired of seeing that, like only seeing before and after photos, only seeing things that are advertised about being smaller, like, or losing weight or being this thing. Like for me, that's not what health and fitness is all about. It's about like what you can achieve and being empowered by what your body can do. So I just wanted to create a community that like celebrated that. And it's been really cool to see it grow over the last like year and a bit now. So
it's massive. And I think like us as rugby players and women who play rugby have probably come through a process of being kind of not proud of like our bodies and being strong humans and stuff like that when we were younger, to then realizing how cool it is. So I think it's super important that you're spreading that message, particularly for young girls coming through, which is super cool. Thank you so much for chatting to us. That's been super interesting, even for me, who know you quite well, and loads of really cool messages there as well. So thanks, Christine.
Thanks for having me.
If your power's out, give us a call on 105. No matter who you pay your electricity bill to, it's our team working tirelessly to get the lights back on. And if you need extra help when the power's out, we're here for you. Join our free Priority Services register. Sign up at our website or text PSR to 61999. SP Energy Networks, working 24/7 to keep your power flowing.